All right, let's talk about some Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. What's really exciting about this movie for me is that, yes, we've had some great superhero movies already this year, Lego Batman, Logan, but now this one really starts off like the meat of the blockbuster superhero movies. Next month we've got Wonder Woman, the month after that we've got Spider-Man, but Guardians came out and I want to talk about it a little bit. I'm going to break this review down into 3 parts. Things that it did well, the problems with the movie, because there were problems with the movie and we need to address them, and finally, how this movie really works in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, because it's really confusing. It also hints at what we can expect in the future. So, I'm going to say this now, this video will have spoilers in it because it's been a few days, a lot of people have gone to see it, and I'm going to be dropping some knowledge that if you hadn't seen the movie, you might have been like, oh, I wish I had known that beforehand. So there's your spoiler warning. Let's get into this. We're going to be saying some nice things about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, such as this movie has so much heart and character to it. It's so good to see that in superhero movies because these movies start to kind of get a little bland or formulaic and you just know what to expect from them. And honestly, that's what we loved about the first Guardians movie, is that movie just kind of shook things up. It made things different. It wasn't just your Thor or your Iron Man movies. It wasn't a Batman movie. It took a different look at superheroes. It threw it out into space, and it was something different. Everyone's big question was this movie going to be able to live up to the first one? For example, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie was amazing. Then the second one happened, and we're like, oh, I guess the first one was great because it was new and different, and then this was just more of that. This was more of that. It was a lot of what we loved about the first one and just thrown into our faces, and it had those characters that we just fell in love with before, plus now Baby Groot stole everyone's heart, and we need to address that. It was good to throw ourselves outside of the Marvel Universe a little bit and get a different storyline. The other thing that I thought Guardians Volume 2 did very well was, well, its villain. Marvel notoriously hasn't really been able to do good villains recently. For example, in the first one, when you had Ronan as the bad guy in Guardians, he was just another bad guy doing bad guy things. He wanted a gem to, take over the world or destroy the world. Or, I don't know, all the bad guys just want to take over, destroy the world. This one was different, actually. No, it wasn't. The bad guy kind of just wanted to take over the universe. At least this character had background, it had depth. We didn't know he was going to be the bad guy, obviously, without being vague anymore. Spoilers! We're talking about Ego the Living Planet. And I thought Kurt Russell did really great with this. Their version of Ego was interesting, making him a celestial, really kind of giving us a lot of just insight into what else is out in the Marvel Universe, and being able to portray the planet as a single human being also was fantastic. The realization of the turn was like, oh, he's the bad guy, but also we didn't find out that he was the bad guy until the 3rd act of the movie, and when you go through 2 acts of the movie and you really haven't established who the bad guy is besides the Sovereign, which they were kind of there as a nuisance, they weren't really filling that role of bad guy. So we kind of saw it coming, but at least this time we had depth to a villain, which was new and interesting and so good to see. So I was happy with that. I think what Guardians really did for the Marvel Cinematic Universe was explain to us the larger scope of the world and the character that's outside of Earth. We're used to the Avengers movies where we've been seeing New York and Earth as a whole. Yeah, we've getting some Asgard stuff with Thor, but this really took us out into the universe to let us know this is what it's like out there. With Stallone and his cameo, the whole Ravager stuff, just the style and vibe was interesting. And so you gotta give it to Guardians 2 for subtly letting us know what the rest of the universe looks like, so good job there. At the end of the day, I'm going to say I really enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It's not on my top 5, I did not like it more than the first movie, but I did enjoy it a lot, and you can always tell what a good superhero movie is when you want to see it over and over and over. For example, me with Winter Soldier or Civil War or Dark Knight, those are superhero movies I can watch over and over. Same thing with Iron Man and Avengers. Versus movies like Ant-Man or Thor 2, in my opinion, I saw them once, I understood how they add to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I watched them, I'm up to date, but I don't need to see them again. But this was definitely a movie that I'm looking forward to seeing again and again. So no matter what problems I mention with this movie, this is a movie that I still enjoyed and definitely deserves to be watched more than once. It's definitely one of those movies that the more you watch it, you catch little things here and you see little Easter eggs, and I think that's great. Another positive thing was it gave us the depth of other characters that we didn't get enough of in the first movie. For example, Yondu. Yondu was this pretty cool character that I wanted to see some more of, and in Guardians Volume 2, we really got to see like him as a character, understanding why he was the way he was and where he fit into his own universe. And Michael Rooker was great with it. He became one of my favorite characters, and wunderbar. Also, who didn't love Baby Groot? I'm gonna take this moment, just let's appreciate Baby Groot for what he was. A merchandising selling tool. But he was so adorable with his big eyes and his little mouth, and he's like, oh, I am Groot. It was adorable. But now let's address the things that were weird with this movie. For me, I really had a hard time in the theater where I was watching it, and I'm like, how does this have anything to do with the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe? A few moments ago I said it really gave it more scope and it gave the galaxy a character. But when you watch everything from Iron Man to 8-9 years later, and it's all telling a larger story and it's all connected kind of, this movie was kind of a fart in the wind. It didn't tie into the current Thanos storyline at all. It didn't lead into the next Marvel movie, which was going to be Spider-Man, or even, which would have made more sense, tying into Thor Ragnarok, because that's obviously going to take place in space. And in the credits, there was even Jeff Goldblum in there dancing, but I thought we were going to see him in post-credits, and we didn't. There was no Jeff Goldblum. That's weird. And so for me, I just felt a little like I'm following this larger scope. I'm following this larger storyline. When you just give me another movie that doesn't really add to it, I don't know, I felt a little empty. Again, a lot of people will say that this is a positive thing. It just like, here was one story, it told us this story, it got us out of all this mess that's happening right now, just focused on this. For me, I didn't like that part. It just felt, like I said, a fart in the wind. It was just something that happened and it had nothing to do with anything else. Another problem was, again, contradicting myself earlier, that there were things that we loved about Guardians Volume 1, and then they're like, oh, hey, you love Drax? Well, here's a whole lot of Drax being funny. Oh, you liked Rocket Raccoon? Well, here's Rocket Raccoon being bunny all over again and fiddling with his tools and tech. It just took everything that we loved and we're like, here, shove it in your face. For example, this movie doesn't take place that far after the first one, and I felt like Drax was really just changed. He was, Dave Bautista did an amazing job in the first movie, giving us this character that didn't understand sarcasm or just language in general, and it was very straight to the point, and it was a great, different type of character in that group of heroes that it made him stand out. This one, he was just laughing the entire time and cracking jokes, and as much as I loved it and as much as he pulled it off, it felt like it was just trying to force this thing out on me. It's like, oh, you liked Drax from before? Here's more Drax, he's so funny. Like, I just thought some of his jokes weren't really hitting and they didn't make sense, and they kept going back to a few callbacks, and I'm like, okay, I get it, Drax is funny now. In the spirit of just hammering home some jokes, you had stuff with Baby Groot. And there's the scene in the movie where Baby Groot is trying to help get Rocket Raccoon and Yondu out of their little jail cell. And like, that joke went on for too long. He kept coming back, and I got what they were doing. It was funny. I laughed. It felt like it was dragging that joke on a little too long. It's like, hey, you like Baby Groot? He's so damn cute. Here you go. I'm like, okay. Again, you could argue with me with this. Like, it was funny, it felt like it went on for a little too long. Another problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe that kind of continued more with this one was the fact that we just have some convenience that really helps move the story along. In this one, there was some convenience with plot points where it's like, oh, okay, that's how we progress forward. A big one that kind of like took me out of the movie for a second was Gamora like leaving so far away from the palace when they were with Ego, and that's when Nebula came back and was like trying to kill her with a starship. And I'm like, first of all, how the hell did she get all the way out here? She's like in the middle of nowhere. Did she just wander for 2 hours and all of a sudden Nebula decides to attack her here? And then continuing the coincidence here is after that fight where Nebula can't hit one target with her ship, I'm gonna let that one slide, whatever. But they make it into a cavern, and then they find all the bodies down there, and that's how they progress the story, and now we actually have conflict, and we realize that Ego is the bad guy of the movie. And I'm like, okay, that was super convenient that you found that, but can you really blast a movie for its convenience? Well, I will. Again, I still love the movie, but it's little things like this. I'm like, come on, we can do a little bit better than this, but okay. Stacking problems that Marvel hasn't really learned from is giving away too much from the trailer. Looking at one of the first trailers for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, they showed the conversation between Rocket and Baby Groot about don't push the red button, it'll kill everyone. Now, as adorable as that scene was, when I saw it in the movie, like that's the height of the third act. And I'm like, oh, I saw this scene already. It's like, stop showing me stuff that I've already seen. And speaking of which, weird things in that particular scene, Chris Pratt's also talking to Rocket and he's flying around and that's a funny joke and I get it. But during this moment, he's just flying around with his jetpack boots or whatever it is. During this scene, he's just flying around with his little jetpack thing and he's firing at ships with his actual guns. Like, there's like 1,000 ships and just one Chris Pratt. Okay, don't show me that. I wish they would have shown me that action. There was so many scenes where they kind of took away from the action. For example, when Yondu does break free from his cell and he attacks all the other Ravengers, his little whistle stick just kills everyone. And again, that's a great scene and it's really smart how he goes into the security room so we can see everyone. But at the same time, like, we didn't really get to see Rocket there, like, doing his thing. It just Yondu blowing a whistle and killing everybody. And the opening scene where they fight the giant interdimensional monster thing. Again, I like how they did it, how they did the opening scenes, and you're just following Baby Groot dancing, which I guess that's a part of his character. We're taking away from the actual fight that's happening. As much as I liked how it was done and it set the tone for the movie, at the same time, it did follow a pattern of not showing us as much action as they probably could. But I know you probably love that opening scene because it showed Baby Groot. Speaking of Baby Groot, yes, we all love him. But there was an interview a long time ago where Gunn was saying, no, Baby Groot isn't in the movie just to sell toys. Let me tell you, that's a whole lot of bull. I know everybody that I know now wants to buy a Baby Groot doll. And another thing that really stood out was the type of humor. Like, they really force-fed some weird humor into the movie and kept the jokes going. Rocket Raccoon blasting people up into the air and then them landing again. That was fun, but went on for a little bit too much. And the other thing that was really wacky was when they were traveling through space holes, or however they do their hyperdrive, which was clever how they describe it, but at the same time, their like mouths are getting big, their eyes are starting to bulge. I get intergalactic travel can get a little wonky, but to play on that so cartoony, it reminded me that I am watching a cartoon. I'm not watching a Marvel movie. It was a live action cartoon. So I had to wrap my head around that a little bit. And when you think of that, it really does make life a lot easier. Like, it makes it a lot easier to watch it when you recognize this is just one giant cartoon. So there's a lot of little things that I would nitpick about, and I think it's very important to address those little things that made the movie less than perfect. I give it like a B, maybe a B plus. Plot-wise, there wasn't a lot of story. Like, the characters did a lot, but there wasn't a lot that was accomplished. Very early on into the movie, the characters break into two groups and then they never see each other again. What's the point of having a group of heroes if they never interact with each other? I just don't think that was, like, it was necessary for the story, but they were away from each other the entire movie. They set up a conflict between Rocket Raccoon and Peter Quill in the beginning and then couldn't address it until the end of the third act when they came together again. It's not perfect. It's not the best superhero movie of the year. It's just good. We've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad, now let's talk about the ugly. And the ugly is always going to do with timelines. This movie was a little confusing when it came to time. This movie takes place 4 years before the next Avenger movie. So it's kind of weird in the timeline how they are going to interact in what movies. As much as I want to see Guardians show up in Thor, which I think they will, because I think they have to, because how else will they know to travel to Earth right now? It just doesn't make sense in the timeline that there's 4 years to get to that point. Like, what are they doing in those 4 years? Are we just skipping those 4 years? And if we are skipping those 4 years, there's the end credits cliffhanger where they're talking about what's going to happen in the rest of the Marvel universe after Guardians 3, which is going to be the cosmic universe and talking about Adam Warlock. If we introduce Adam Warlock there in 2014, why are we just not dealing with him for the next 4 years? Like, what does it mean? How are they going to even wind up in Thor Ragnarok to kind of get the message that everyone needs to come to Earth? I don't know. And if this be the case, if it's everyone just trying to get everyone together at the same time, maybe that's what the first Infinity War is going to be about. It's a whole lot of setup for the next Avengers movie, and I hope that's not the case, because I want to see some action in the Avengers movie, not just everyone getting together and then all of a sudden we got to fight Thanos, and then that's what the following movie's about. Actually, I may have just described it all. That could actually be how it all is. It's going to be 4 years before Avengers 3. And what happens in those 4 years? I don't know. No one knows. It's really confusing. We get the little scene with Teen Groot, and I think that's the last time we're going to see Teen Groot, because when we see them all in Avengers, and it is 4 years later, we're finally going to see Groot being Groot. Like, we never really saw the true power of Groot, even in the first Guardians movie, and now we are. So get ready for that. It's going to be great. I love the movie, and I can't wait to see it really tie into the rest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I give it a B. It was a good B. It's not bad. It was like an 8 on the scale. This has been my opinions on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Well, let me know in the comments below what you think. I want to discuss with you guys. I want to hear your opinions. Tell me how I'm wrong, or tell me what you thought of the movie, and let's discuss there. And again, just thank you so much for watching. Till the next time, guys, I'll see you later. I also thought the music was a little weak in this movie, but shh. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and sign up for some notifications. I got 2 videos here I think you're really gonna like. Give them a watch. Till the next time, guys, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you later.